I don't know about that.
Well, I do get to eat. Let's say that.
That's right.
Did you perchance think of bringing the chicken feed in today?
Yep.
Oh, good. Did you notice I left the front can open?
Nope. I put them in the second can.
I need them in the front can.
Well, first we can switch the places of the two cans if it's empty.
Oh, wasn't there something in the second can? Yeah.
A little bit of chicken, but
did you take that out?
Well, it's sitting on top right now.
Okay, I'll just rearrange. No, this one's yours.
How are we doing with audio?
Audio sounds good. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Oh, looks like Judson may have found a way to get in.
I don't know if you can see me. Can you see me?
See a picture of you in front of a cactus.
Okay, wait a minute. Here we go.
Oh, yep. Now I can see.
That's better. I like the other one better, but that's okay.
So let me see. I think I'm trying to record this meeting, but I don't see any indication. I can't tell if I can see if it's happening or not. Oh, recording. Yeah, I guess it is. Okay, I'll leave it running, even though we have 10 minutes of chit chat before the meeting starts. I could hit pause. Oh, I can hit pause. Maybe I can hit recording. Okay, recording is back on, and it's. I'm sorry, Steve.
Tell Judson that he can hit the chat button and a chat window opens up and you can type messages there.
And I will try to keep track of them. Other people can too, I think. And I have to keep one eye on the participant list to see if anyone else needs to be admitted. But right now, I think we're good. So we have.
It looks like Judson is hooked up. It looks like he just has to unmute himself.
Oh, let's see. I can try to unmute him. Unmute. I don't know. When I hit his unmute, nothing happens.
Well, you can't unmute him if he doesn't want to be unmuted.
I guess that's true. So Judson, in case you want to be unmuted, you can hit the mute button down, the unmute button at the bottom of your Zoom window, bottom left corner. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started as best we can. And as I say, I'm going to keep trying. I may seem a little distracted as I try to keep track of the participant column to make sure no one is waiting to be admitted. We have seems like a fairly reasonable, not too lengthy agenda. I would propose that we just go down it in order, which first thing I put in there was leftover business, basically from the meeting we would have had in March, which is to elect our officers.
Rick.
Oh yeah, I see. I see. That's Rick. Not okay. That's moved over one. I've been the holdover secretary so far because our chairman was Linda, and her term ended back in February. So we need a chairperson, and we need a secretary. I would put myself forward to be the chairperson, but others can have their own ideas if they like, of course. And if we do that, then we have to find a secretary. But I'll put it out there to start with.
So we should discuss?
Yeah. Yes. Amongst you, feel free. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy if you were a chairperson. You certainly have got the experience now.
That's right. Such as it is, and only for a truncated year, because my term only runs until next February. When either I can run again, if I'll be selected again, possibly, or not, for another 2-year term as an at-large member.
Well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I tell you what I don't want to do is I also don't want to be secretary.
Okay.
Just too busy. I'm happy to keep churning out documents like I do, but and Steve will attest that hopefully last year was the busiest the secretaries will ever be.
I hope so.
Let's hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a similar problem. I'm not even sure that I'm going to be able to still serve on any board because I may not be in Point Roberts, so I wouldn't want to take an
Oh.
officer position.
Oh my.
You know.
Okay.
Well, Pam, can we rope you into being secretary? Oh, obviously, I think you're on mute right now. Hold on, Pam. Let me see if I can I unmute you?
How about now?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay. I would prefer not to take either position until this is my second meeting. So I would like to see what this is all about before I
Well,
start jumping in.
secretary doesn't require too much experience. I jumped in a year ago when I got drafted for that role. It's really just trying to keep track of keynotes, and we do have recordings, which I never really took advantage of, but one could try to to listen to them after the fact if one misses something in note taking. And I think my minutes were probably a little bit too extensive. I'm not sure what Steve would think. He was probably the only one that really saw them. They probably could be a little bit less complete. But anyway,
I read everyone. No, I thought they were just about right. They could be terser, but they weren't ridiculously oversell. I've had other secretaries in other groups that did 10-page notes. It's like every word, every comma gets transcribed. I don't think we need that. We need the facts,
mostly
the
doesn't need to hit
questions, the answers, the facts, the votes. There's a certain set of things that you have to have recorded in the minutes.
No. Can we twist your arm, Pamela?
No. No, I'm going to beg off.
Okay, well, that's going to be a challenge here.
Yeah, my struggle is I've got an ailing mother-in-law and an ailing brother-in-law, and we are looking at relocating him up here somewhere, but we have to be within 100 miles of Seattle.
Right. Yeah, no,
Okay.
I may be in and out. I'm not leaving Point Roberts per se, but my time here may be very limited.
yeah,
That's
understood.
why I don't want to commit to taking on a role that I can't do properly. I'm kind of a fan of only doing things that you can actually do.
And not to push the point, but do you need to talk to the voters about
Nope.
swapping you out, or?
Nope, there's nothing definite now. If something becomes definite, I'll talk to him about it.
Got it. Okay, well, we don't want to get stuck without a secretary. I guess we could, since Judson can't object because we can't hear him.
Yeah. Judson, you better type something.
That wouldn't be fair.
Well, when has this ever been fair?
Exactly. Well, we could try first things first. Is anyone willing for me to be the chairperson?
Yes,
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
absolutely.
So then we just have to work on the second piece of that then. Well, we'll figure it out. In the meantime, I guess I can write something up from this one. I'll wear two hats for another month. Okay, so next thing on the agenda, it was just confirming, I just noticed this from a previous agenda, just confirming our meeting time. Are we good with it? We've been doing the third Thursday of every month at 6 o'clock in the afternoon/evening. And if that's good, we can just plan to stick with that for this current year. If it's not good for people, now that we have 3 out of 5 are new people. If something is better than that, we could consider an alternative.
It's as good as any time for me, but the one thing I would throw out there that I have heard from people about meetings and availability of people being able to come to them. So if let's say you work, assuming at some point we reopen the border, and let's say that you work in Vancouver or Delta or somewhere, getting here by 6 p.m. is sometimes very difficult if they were going to go to the meeting. So I've had people on the voters side that asked us to bump it down to 7 or put it on a weekend. So I'm just going to put that out there. I don't want that necessarily. I'm totally good with 6 p.m. I have no issue with it whatsoever, but that's the one piece of feedback I have heard.
Yeah. It is common that most of the groups in town do meet at 7, but I happen to like 6 because it means things wrap up a little earlier than.
Well, yeah, voters meets at 6 as well.
Yeah. So I don't know. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I could do 7. It would be okay. I think 6 is a little early if you're actually busy. Today was an easy day for me, so I was able to relax a little bit. before. At least we're not going somewhere. We're sitting here at our computers at home, and my dinner is 10 feet away. So not bad. But when we go back to regular meetings, 6 is a little hard. But then again, 7, when it's at 7, you know, and it's a hard meeting, we could be there to 9 o'clock like we've done, you know, and that's bad too. So
Yeah.
It's a half a dozen to one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess if we use this meeting as an example, only because being a Zoom call, anyone could call in from anywhere, even from, well, I guess they wouldn't be able to, yeah, even from a cell phone, you can do it on the road.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's the time that causes people not to be calling in. It's probably just the committee or the or the lack of anything too pressing right now on the agenda. But well, I guess I would say, why don't we stick with 6 and then see if we have any reason to readjust mid-year.
I'm good with 6.
Yeah, I am too.
Okay. Well, so let me just, I see Judson did manage to do a chat. So
Yep.
let me just add a
Unmuted too.
feel free to add your comments. Let me see. I think I'll send that to everybody since it's not that many people here, but it's mostly intended for Judson. Oh.
He says, thanks, I can hear. That's good.
Oh yeah, you can hear that. Good. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Old business we had. So okay, that was a delayed.
Well, let's hear from Judson about timing, because he's.
Oh yeah, I
he's
just
super
asked.
busy guy.
I asked him to add comments, but we haven't gotten
John,
one.
are you okay with 6, or you'd rather have 7?
Tap once for 6, twice for 7.
Go with the flow.
Means
Oh,
whatever we
okay.
decide.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Didn't see that before. Thank you, Judson. So a previous year, I think I saw in a February agenda that we had actually tried to identify topics to deal with for the year. I don't know. I felt like in this format right now, maybe this wasn't the time to try to do that, but we certainly could entertain topics. I mean, we still have wrapping up 2072 from last year. We already have on the agenda the tree canopy on APA to have maybe some discussion tonight, but it could go on during the year as well. But other issues may be on people's mind. One, of course, one thing we have still from Satpal from his visit back in that was in February was the issue of reforming or reforming this whole committee as a possible or maybe even a mandated agenda item from him for 2020, I would say.
So I met with him individually as well.
Okay.
And we met with the voters board. What he actually wanted to do, and I mean, he can't really mandate really much of anything, but with respect to our committees, but what he wanted us to do, if possible, was to consolidate committees into a single unit that would represent the desires of Point Roberts. And you know, we kind of explained to him the way it's kind of supposed to work. We got taxpayers, we got voters. Those are distinctly different stakeholders. And then that kind of feeds up to PRCAC, and PRCAC should be the unifying voice. And if that's not working, then we need to fix that problem. His continued response was, I would rather you just have one group.
Yeah, he said that he also said that, I think, to the taxpayers and to the community as a whole when he met with us all, and to the PRC members when he met with us. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a nice goal. I mean, the problem, I mean, it's certainly part of the point he was making is when this committee or anybody from Point Roberts puts something forward to county council to consider, from his perspective, maybe as a former council member, but also as the county executive, he thinks it would be so much more effective if the county felt as though the PRCAC truly represented a vast majority of the people of Point Roberts, rather than reflecting what I consider to be the rather fractious nature of the people, the community as a whole. I mean, it's hard to say we have one voice when the reality is we often have many voices that aren't on the same page. So
Yeah,
it's a great goal, but it's hard to see how we really make it stick.
It certainly seemed like an elephant in the room kind of a thing, because what I think has happened in the past in most cases is people would either see the structure we had or the committees we had as not functioning, and what that usually actually meant was not agreeing with their position on something. So then they would try to end run stuff. And my thought, I mean, I'm kind of a jackwagon when it comes to process. If you've got an established process, you work within a process, or we ignore you. That's what I told Satpal. I said, you should either tell people either work in the process we've got or ignore it.
Mhm.
And he was a little bit soft on that. And I was like, that's fine. I'm totally good with that. You're an elected official. You can't piss off everyone. I get it. I don't care for me personally, because people get mad at me all the time. It's not new for me. But at the same time, I took that information back to the Voters Association. We had a pretty lengthy discussion. There was a pretty good appetite for just combining voters and taxpayers into a single thing and merging the boards somehow.
Yep.
I think there's good appetite for that. And I actually think that is the bulk of the coverage. The only thing that's really not well represented in that would be small business owners, so what commerce or what's the other one? I apologize.
PRIBC, yeah.
IBC. What those two groups are really targeted at is the one thing that's not really well represented within the combination of voters and taxpayers. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there was a lot of discussion about that kind of a merger back before everything went silent back in March.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could check back in with those groups, or when they next time they have a meeting, or however things are going. But anyway, I guess the main point is to have it to not have it fall off our agenda, because we should have something to suggest probably to Satpal at some point in the coming months, or by the end of the year, or something that would potentially revise.
So I would suggest that taking on an issue, identifying an issue for us to track and work towards, or work towards resolution. Resolution may be that we actually do it, and resolution may be that we don't do it. But put something on our list of things to work on, which is getting a consolidated voice across the various committees. So if we have that as one issue, that's one thing. We did a ranked voting effort in the Voters Association, where each different board member listed their top 5 issues individually, and we had them do a ranked order from 1 through 5, and then we took those votes and basically did a weighted vote, and that way we came up with a unified list 1 through 5 of the top issues that voters was concerned about. Now, I don't have that list in front of me, or I'd tell you what the results were. But
yeah, I recall. I don't remember the detail, but I think the taxpayers had a similar exercise, and actually maybe had pretty much overlap. I'm not sure the priority was exactly the same, but I think most of the items were quite similar.
Well,
Yeah.
the way it partially happened was that after a meeting with Tommy's group, then Allison and Mark got together, the 3 of them, and they came up with a list. And then somehow Tommy decided to pull out of it somehow. I don't know exactly what the politics was right there, but then Allison and Mark were left with a pretty good list. They thought their list was pretty good. I thought the list was pretty good. It was common sense, interesting stuff.
Yeah, there was a tremendous amount of overlap for sure. The thing that was surprising, there was a few things on the list that no one had really talked about all year, but they were on everyone's mind. So that was a good exercise. It's really hard to do remotely, that sort of exercise, but not impossible, I guess. But yeah, I don't know what caused the political fallout there, why it kind of got dropped, but I mean, that's just something I think we ought to try to do, is identify the core issues that we're going to go after and keep it to a very short list, because as we've seen, if you've got 10 or 12 things to do, you never get any of them done, because you only have 12 meetings a year. You can't really get any progress made, so you spend a lot.
I'll tell you one thing I thought I was going to get done during the COVID time was working on the bylaws. Because I thought, all this time, no meetings, that's a great time to do it. And maybe even though that time is coming to an end, maybe I will still try to finally get my attention back to that. Judson did write us a note here writing that PRC outreach must must become accepted by all. It is our job to make sure we are approachable. And I think that's certainly a good point.
Yeah.
And I think we all agree with that.
Well,
Can
at
I
the
ask
end,
a quick
end of,
question?
Yeah, sure.
How many people are active in the voters and the taxpayers at this point in time for like an average meeting? How many people attend?
Voters for probably during the winter, we always had a quorum of board members, and we typically had 3 or 4 non-board members that would show up and have, just want to listen or whatever. So there wasn't a tremendous amount of in-person active participation, but I got the sense that most people just absorbed what we were doing through our meetings that we would publish and push out through like point interface and pause and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I don't know what you could actually say participation is when we think the bulk of it is passive participation.
Do we,
well,
do we
taxpayers,
know how many members?
I don't know off the top of my head. Ken Calder would have that information because he was the
Okay.
secretary.
and
'Cause to me,
taxpayers,
that would determine whether to merge the organizations. If everybody's got 8 people showing up to 3 different meetings, it would behoove us to have 24 people at one meeting.
Yeah, I think
They're all the same people. So, Steve, what were you going to say?
yeah, and I disagree that they're the same people. They're often different people. Like Pat Harper right there, he's a board member, or was a board member, I guess, taxpayers. He comes, and Judson comes most of the time, and I come most of the time, or all the time, taxpayers. But we do have somewhat of a different set of people. So merging them, which I don't know how much interest there really is from taxpayers to merge, but if we merge them, you probably would gain. You'd lose a couple net, but you'd probably gain some. And yeah, I think we talked about it a lot. We have a lot of our meetings seem to have like 10, 12 people, maybe more, some of them. Depends what guests we have. Sometimes, and we've had guests, we've had visitors, guests who come and are new. We've had a few of those. I'm just trying to think back. So it's been not too bad. I mean, I guess Mark's done a pretty good job at trying to keep it going. And yeah, and on the note of merging it, one of the big things to remind everybody of was that one proposal is to turn PRCAC into an elected, by the public group. So not be a representative group. And that has pluses and minuses. So everyone becomes at large. I'd like to see some different rules for at larges, that kind of thing. So there's some thinking to be done. But it would go evidently relatively cheaply onto the regular ballots, and people could vote. So you'd have to campaign, you got to do all those things, and maybe it's not a 2-year term. So anyway, there's a million little details there, and it's not easy. But it would also, I think, what Mark was saying, and I agree with this. If you went that way, you have to give it more teeth. We are an advisory committee right now. If you're a real governmental committee, like we would be the government of Point Roberts to some extent. I mean, we are now a little bit because we're advisory, we're legal, we're part of the county and all that. We're authorized by the county. But if you're that kind of a group, this proposed group, you would have more teeth. Don't know what that means exactly, but you'd have more teeth. And it's more work. And you might need a budget, for God's sakes. And so it's a different can of worms. It could be good. It could be hard.
Some, Steve. Because jumps ahead some, Steve. I mean, I think right now we're only talking about possibly trying to restructure what this group is. I mean, to make something that actually has some teeth is a whole different, different thing. And just
but that conversation, but Stephen, that conversations come together at all times with the other conversation. That's what I'm saying. Well, yeah, so conversations were always going together.
One doesn't lead to the other. One doesn't have to lead to the other. We can all be elected.
Yeah. Okay.
Just as toothless as we.
I agree.
So I must interject one thing. Your mention that there was a notion that that would be in elected positions, they would be all at large. That is the very first time I've heard that, and I've never missed a meeting of the association, and I haven't missed one of these either. So and Tessa took pretty good notes from last year. That is a new concept from my perspective.
I think that was discussed at both the voters and taxpayers because they were both willing to get rid of their representation. I'm not sure the chamber ever weighed in on this, but both the taxpayers and the voters had expressed really to get rid of their own representation. And that really by definition means that everyone would be elected at large. But
Yeah. By definition, exactly, Stephen. By definition, they became at large. Maybe the words at large never got uttered.
I think,
but if you get rid of the membership, what are they?
Yeah.
See,
so I apologize. I think by presumption, it was not explicitly stated because that was
You're right.
at length, and we didn't really talk about that.
That's probably right. Anyway, we don't need to solve this issue now. This is just to make sure we have it on on our agenda. I don't want our meeting to go on forever tonight on just DC. We should really get the check back in with Allison and Mark and others in the two different groups and see where, if anywhere, they still want to head or come up with some alternative plan. I do think that to some degree the bylaws that I still haven't worked on for the last year, in some ways would go a long way toward dealing with some of the issues that people were concerned about in the past, because they were concerned about conflict of interest. They were concerned about other things. They thought things weren't being done all in ways they could have been. I'm not sure that was ever really too much of a direct issue, but nonetheless, having bylaws in place to codify how we operate might also resolve some of that community dissatisfaction. Here's another note from Judson that came in while we were all chatting. I don't have my, I had to put my glasses on to see what it is. Make what we do now become best practices with constant improvement. Yeah, well, that's also, yep, I think we could probably all get behind that.
There's nothing controversial about that concept.
Yeah. So anyway, let's see we move off of the delayed business and move into old business, so we can talk about the. I'll turn this over to Steve for that. I guess the status of our 2072 changes from last year and trying to get some additional feedback. Possibly, still I can't remember if we're still trying to get feedback to the PDS or to county council, or if we're past that now. Anyway, go ahead, Steve, if you want to.
Well, first off, on the feedback. Nothing. Even if we give them feedback tomorrow, the PDS, which needs the planning commission, is still not meeting publicly.
Right.
And they have to get over the pandemic regulations enough to do that. Evidently, I don't think they feel. I don't know what's happening. I shouldn't put words in their mouth about how they'll bring the planning commission back. But whatever we do, we have a little time. We don't have to necessarily vote on this today. If you have not all looked at the documents and try to decide, there's more time to do that. And we could, on next meeting, perhaps vote. But to boil it all down, most of the changes seem very reasonable to Steve and I. We found a couple gotchas, which I made notes in yellow about the gotchas. But the big one was something that I feel good that PDS discovered, if you will, that Mark Personius was involved. He read the whole thing. He worked with them. I don't know who else was involved in their subcommittee, but it was certainly Cliff Strong and Mark Personius himself. And they went over it very carefully. And the one gotcha was that under conditional use, one could allow 3 or more storage containers. Now, that's not really saying a storage company. We've banned those. But the thing is, you could have Joe Blow say, okay, I'm going to go get a good lawyer, and somehow we're all asleep when they go to court, to the hearing, and he gets 50 containers in his backyard. And, I don't think that's the spirit of what we were proposing. 2 containers or something like that per business would be okay. Because, by the way, anyone who has the money and time to want to get a proper design and go get a building permit can build a larger building or expand their building. It's just that the storage containers are a way to relatively cheaply allow people to have business storage. And it was a good compromise over some of the issues at 1480 Gulf and all that kind of stuff. So I think Steve and I were just coming down to if it's that the language should change to no more than 2. So I'm not too sure what that does to that line in the conditional use. It's like either deletes it, completely, because if it's no more, why do you even have it in that one sub item in conditional use? Or do we have some other kind of language where they can still go and try to argue for more storage containers? But again, these are unpermitted storage containers, meaning they didn't have to go and get a building permit and do all that kind of work that everyone else has to do. So limiting them is no problem. I think any business that wants more storage should build a proper building, get a piece of property and build a proper building that needs more storage for their business. and that's a different issue. So that's the big one. So they may have saved us in their minds from a potential ugly situation, and of course on any conditional use, hopefully we would know all about it, the public, through this organization and others. We would either promote it, hey, that's a great idea, or we would go against it. And some of us would either go to say yay or nay at the hearing. But still, you don't want to make it easy for people to really abuse the spirit, which is pretty much 2 containers per business. So I think that we can just settle tonight that, yes, that's a good idea to somehow limit it to not 3 or more. The original language was, if you want 3 or more, you can get a conditional use. You can apply for a conditional use permit. And that seems crazy, according to Mark Personius and his gang, because maybe they could get delivered on that, and suddenly we've got 50 in somebody's backyard somewhere, business's backyard. So that's kind of dumb. So that, I think we could all agree we shouldn't have. That's not in the spirit of what we're trying to do. And so there's a few other minor things that they made changes to that I think for the most part, Steve and I like. But, this is the kind of thing that on this forum, we can't go line by line very easily. We could pull them up on the screen and go line by line. Or you read them and call Steve and I, and we can, any one of us, by the way, without causing a quorum situation, can call any other committee member and talk. It's when you can't have 3 talking or making decisions. So if anyone wants to talk to anyone else, anyone wants to talk to me, or anyone wants to talk to Steve, or Steve and I want to talk to whatever, then we can keep the debate going outside the meetings. But we make no decisions, no votes that aren't in the public venue. That's the big one. Okay, that was a little speech at the end.
So the question is, we could pull it up on the screen, or because nothing's going on in Bellingham, I guess we could also punt on that and look at it at our next meeting, which might be another Zoom meeting, or maybe it'll be in person by that time.
Yeah. Well, I would like to suggest we do that. I'd like to see everyone here. Actually, I made a summary document. Hopefully it's understandable. If it's not, call me, or call Steve, and we'll try to discuss it. And
summary
try to
document,
get those last
Good,
tidbits.
actually.
is that summary document in an email or somewhere to this?
Yeah, it was sent to you.
Yeah, just a few days ago. I forgot.
2 documents. The difference in it, Pam, I didn't hear you. What did you say? I'm sorry, Pam?
Oh, no, I looked through it and it looked really good. And I did agree with the thing with the containers. Definitely, that was way too open-ended and just invited a problem.
Okay.
With it.
The 2 documents. One was the original PDS document as we delivered, what I call 2072-2019, to put an acronym, a version acronym on it. That was there and has their from PDS notes, including from the Mark Personius meeting. And then in yellow is Steve and I's notes. So they haven't seen the stuff in yellow, okay? And some of the things in yellow are just me putting yellow on interesting areas of note that PDS told us to take note of, so I did. I put them in yellow. Then the summary document is I took every one of those issues and just put them into a single document. Hopefully that's easier reading. But you now have the full legal document, and that is the legal document, the work in progress legal document, and you have the summary notes, and so this stuff is complex and messy, and none of us have all the answers. And I've learned to, certainly my chagrin with the towers and all that kind of stuff, is that sometimes you have to hire an expensive lawyer just to find out how it actually works, because you can't necessarily tell, and PDS can't always tell you how it should work or not work. So we're learning together. We're definitely learning together. I'm really glad Steve and I have been so involved on this, because it does take that kind of focus to do it. And I'm really glad that Mark and company really focused and found something they thought really was a little dangerous. So they really worked on it. So that gives power to our effort, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to say thanks for putting that summary together, because that is very helpful. And I apologize for not catching that. I thought I was looking for it on the regular meeting note from Stephen Falk wasn't like a thread. I didn't dig down far enough in that one thread to see it. So I'll review it, and if I have any comments or anybody or anything looks out out of kilter from the discussions we've had in voters, then I'll definitely chime in on that. But
And Allison got CC'd a copy, as did Mark, as did DGO. We still don't know who the chairperson is. Maybe Judson knows now of Chamber. Judson, did they tell you at your Chamber meeting if they have a new chairperson? Or is it still DGO? But anyway, she got a copy too. So the three heads got a copy, and the at-larges got a copy, obviously.
So why don't we plan to, I mean, Mark will take a look again. We can all take a look again just in case anything shows up. And maybe at the next meeting, we can finalize our position so we do finally get something back to yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I'm sure,
Yeah,
as Steve said, I'm sure we aren't holding anybody up yet, but by a month from now, it'll probably be timely to get something out to them.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, we definitely want it on his desk when he starts getting ready to actually go back and do normal work.
Yeah.
Yep.
Last time we talked to Cliff Strong, in fact, the last time I tried to email him, he never got back to me. But this time before that, he said, well, I am now reassigned by SatPol to help with the pandemic. So who knows what that means, but he wasn't doing this function, at least.
That's for sure. Okay, well, let's move on.
Last time we
Let's
talked.
move on to the next item then, which I put on there, but we may not have anything really to discuss. I hope that Armin would have more information about the tree canopy
We'll have some.
effort.
Okay, so if we're on tree canopy, yeah, okay, tree canopy, okay. The gotcha so far, as of tonight, is frankly one of our contacts. I mean, just called me. We
Oh, wait,
talked.
hold on, Steve. Let me just take it back one step for
Sure.
the three new members in case they aren't up to speed on this. This was an initiative that came from the conservation group last year because of the tree damage up at Seabright on APA from the big storm in December of whatever that year was, 18, I guess. I'm not sure anymore. To plant some trees and needing to get permission from the county, needing to get permission from Seabright, and a possible cost of, I forgot what it was going to be, maybe $15,000, $20,000 to get trees and get them planted professionally. And a request, only reason it's really coming into us is because there's going to be a request at some point for tax benefit district funds to be used for that work. And that's where it comes to us. Anyway, go back to you, Steve. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, so that's right, that's right. It could be 15 to 20 grand out of our fund. And there's lots of issues about authorizing the fund. But the one thing is we got to get authorized is Seabright at least signing the piece of paper called an encroachment permit. And that has to be Mr. Ding, evidently. That's his real name. He evidently has a house there, but God knows where he is these days with the pandemic. But nobody seems to be able to find him. And our friend George doesn't work there anymore. He volunteers to do his work at the greenhouse. And I got some organic vegetables from him the other day. Very nice. But Frank Lee was our main contact for a while, and he has resigned. And then he also said something interesting, which I am authorized to say on this meeting, is that Frank Lee was saying, I don't know if he said hold on, but it said something like, there's something big that's going to happen. Now, Armin and I speculated, but I don't even want to put that onto the record as to what it is. I don't know. But he did say that, and Armin wants that on the record. Something big is going to happen. But until, I guess what he's saying, until something big happens, maybe nobody's going to sign anything anyway. If this moves forward, it means this committee has to have a proper budget and all that kind of stuff. The Whatcom County people are ready to go pretty much. And then we have to apply for the funds. And I really don't know. I know, Steve, you were talking about who gets to choose one of three contractors. And I would say, yeah, maybe PRCS or somebody does, but maybe the county does. I don't know. So there's some loose ends. I'm not too sure what all that means, but to us right tonight, but there are some loose ends. But it could go pretty rapidly. But the thing is unless we get that money by August something, you don't have the trees to plant by January or December, whenever they want to plant them. And they're large trees. They're 3-inch diameter trunks. So these are not small trees.
Oh.
So it may pan for another year anyway, until Seabright gets its thing done, the pandemic's over, or at least enough for the county to get working again, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the status.
So question about Seabright, and I'm going to ask this as a question so that it is not a statement. Because for the same reason, I don't want something on the record that I said X, Y, Z. I'm going to ask the question. Was there an issue with their financial solvency at some point, or is that still an issue, or do we know?
We don't know. I can tell you there is an issue. We don't know what the impact is. How about that? There's an issue. They owe a lot of property taxes and they haven't paid them. That we know. That's public record.
Okay, that's kind of what I was getting at. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I wonder if that. I'm just going to openly wonder if that ties into the something big.
Yeah.
Air quote. Do that. Air quote.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
Is there still and just clarify, because I don't even know, but I have heard there was a huge administrative cost that was very unwieldy in using our gas tax funds.
Oh, well, that's a
Yes.
that's a big problem. It came up in the context of the berms on Tyee.
Yeah.
And the contract that was put out for that. Yeah, I mean the I forgot what it came down to, but it was almost 80%. I mean, like, you know, $5,000 to get the work done and $4,000 from county administrative costs. And David Glatley and I met with folks down there, you know, back last year when we first learned about that. And sadly, there really didn't seem to be any good way around it. Part of the issue was that was such a small project, and this one also will be a very small project, that the administrative costs end up swamping it. I mean, if you do a big project, actually some of those costs get big as well, but they can seem a little bit more in perspective, or a little bit more reasonable in that context. But in the context of a relatively tiny project, like a $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 project for the actual work that needs to be done, the county.
Or $6,000 admin fee, yeah.
Yeah, six
Yeah.
or eight, or I mean, if on a $20,000 one, I mean, I wouldn't want to speculate, but it could be something large
It
that
seems
will.
like it would be better to tie that into a larger project of some kind and get a larger chunk of money and
Yeah,
do
but
multiple projects.
right, but yeah, I mean,
Under
I don't
one
think
umbrella?
I know it actually would help that way to like cobble 3 or 4 together. I think that would just, if there were 3 small projects, I think we'd still end up with just 3 times the amount of
Yeah, well, I do
administration.
some big fat project.
Yeah,
Let's do
yeah.
some
Well, there's another issue here with that.
sidewalks or something. I don't know. You know what? I'm not well versed on it yet, but
There's another
Okay.
issue too. Because of the big guffaw, and we're stuck with that overhead fee. I think there's another way to work it, because they were doing a management fee. They're managing. In fact, at the beginning, the gardener was at the beginning of his tenure wanted to quit because he was being, you know, nickel and dime constantly, evidently, according to him. He came to the meetings. I don't think we have to do it that way. You can't quote me in the sense that I know for sure we don't have to do it that way, but I have this feeling that the money doesn't have to come through the county to do it if there's a single payment. So
I don't think it'll work, but maybe with a single payment that would be different. Okay.
But when we complain so much, Steve, maybe someone will give in on their end, on the county end.
Yeah, I don't think so. But anyway, I think that's pretty much, since we need to get more, at some point we need to know there's permission from Seabright if that ever comes. And we have to get a clearer budget from Armin and the
Armin is the head. Yes.
And at this point, as you note, I mean, we're already in mid-June. I think decisions would have to get made in the August-September time period at the latest in order to get something done by next February, actually in the ground. So as you pointed out, it may flip over, unfortunately, for another year possibly, but I guess that it'll be what it is. But I mean, Armin is working on it, so I guess we can hope that she'll get some information from Seabright sooner than later.
Yeah.
So those were the only 2 items I had put onto the old business, and I don't think I listed anything under new business, but we have a category of new business if there are new things. Pam had mentioned to me just on the side an interest in dealing with trying to see if anything can be done about the TJ's, the abandoned property basically at TJ's, the old TJ's restaurant, and she was going to look into that a little bit.
that's been 8 years. I didn't realize it had been that long, but they bought it in 2012. So Lee owns it, and it's been 8 years, and it's been completely abandoned. And several people have offered to buy it. They were unwilling to sell. I think Fraser Elliott offered to buy it, and they wanted $650,000. And he laughed, and that was the end of that. So I just think that it's a priority for us, as especially being part of the design guidelines, that when people roll into our town, that we don't have a raccoon motel, as the central feature.
Well, someone could.
Who owns it now?
Yealy in Delta. And that's
Isn't
the
that the
same.
person that got in trouble with the border?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And that was back in 2012. So with everything the way it is now, I just figured it's a good time to try to get information, because clearly they can't come over and do anything with it at this point in time but they could hire someone to go in and clean it up. At least that. So I'm just gathering information. We'll see. I put a little note into the county saying that I would like to know if anything's been done on their end. So we'll see what they come back with.
I wonder, I'm just speculating if Mr. Lee, is it Lee?
Yes.
If Mr. Lee has a lien on it to cover his costs, for dealing with his legal problems. I'm speculating here, but if that's true, then Steve can jump in if he wants on this. If that's true, then he can't just sell it. He's kind of stuck. He has to keep paying the property taxes, or else the county takes it, but he can't sell it. That's a common in the world problem. I don't know.
It wouldn't be so much a lien. He might have used it as, he could have used it as collateral, or
Collateral, yeah.
he could have taken a mortgage out against it. But anyway.
Yeah, that would not show up on the county documents. So we'll see what happens. And the other thing is, I almost hit a deer last week, leaving my store and heading up Gulf Road. One ran right out in front of my car, and my husband almost hit one on Teller.
Yeah.
So that's 2 in a week, because because we have less traffic, and it's been very good year for deer. They're meandering kind of all over the place.
Yeah, they didn't used to be. Yeah.
No, not as much. They were more fearful. So I contacted, who did I contact? Public Works.
Public Works?
Yeah. And asked for deer crossing signs for Johnson, Benson, Teller, Gulf, Boundary Bay Road, Marine Drive.
I asked for one years ago. It didn't ever happen on APA, just a little bit beyond.
APA would be good, yeah.
Because I see them going across there quite a bit.
Yeah, I see them going across Johnson and Tyee, right in that area, almost probably 2, maybe 3 times a week.
Yeah.
They cross the road or stand in the road in front of me and kind of look at me, and I drive by and kind of wave at them. But
no, people are getting whole families of them in their yard mowing down their gardens, and I hadn't seen that before. They're getting pretty brave.
Yeah, it seems like they should be able to find plenty of unoccupied homes down here right now.
Oh yeah, yes.
I'm mowing 4 of them, by the way.
Yeah.
Family
Okay,
fitness.
anyway, that's a good idea. Get some more deer crossing signs up for
No, we have none. So.
safety purposes.
So Pam, are you actually open? There was a sign, but it didn't look open.
I am open.
It didn't look open. That's why
Well,
I'm
we're only
asking.
open. Last weekend was our first weekend. We were open Saturday, Sunday, and
Okay.
now we're going to go Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
And I'll have seniors and compromised immune people from 10 to 11 on those 3 days, and then 11 to 5 for the general public.
We're still in our meeting, so let's not go into post-German topics.
Well, no, I have a suggestion call it a subcommittee of one for Pam. She's our sort of our bartender, if you will. She hears everything. Put a sign up that says this Point Roberts Community Advisory person is the person is in office hours, and come and talk to me.
That's a good idea.
And we'll tell you what was actually going on, because as we know, the difference between what we're doing and what has been, there's a lot of disparity between truth, fiction, and just plain ignorance. So
Yeah.
or sometimes actually those coincide, don't they?
Okay.
Well, most of the comments I've been getting are things that we have nothing that we can do about, which is the border.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
100% people are concerned about the border not opening. There's rumors that it's not opening until January. There's rumors it's not opening until after the election. So I don't know.
There is no shortage of opinions about what the border should be done.
Right.
Absolutely not.
But outside of our range. Is that,
And
I see a
that's
note,
it.
a note from Judson here, Community Outreach Office at Pam's. Is that what you?
And, yeah.
There you go.
Okay, anyway,
No change there.
anything
It's
else?
always been that.
anything else for this meeting, or shall we wrap this one up such as it was? Oh, I should actually bring up something. At our, I forgot if it was January or February, I had brought up the name of this woman, Beth Chisholm from maybe a Washington State University Extension. I can't remember exactly. She was talking to us about, she'd been in touch with Allison and then with me about coming up to the point to give some training on, I think, on recycling and composting and more in the composting direction, I think, but maybe recycling as well. Anyway, we had at the meeting, probably in February, I think we had agreed to have her come talk to this group to see about what it is she would be proposing to do in terms of education in the community. And of course, with all the COVID stuff, that's been on hold. But I did email her, and she would be willing to, or interested actually, in talking to us again, rather than back in, I guess, April when it was going to happen, and have her be on the agenda in July, just not to give a full one of her training, but just to tell us what it would be that she would be talking about. So I will try to set that up so she can join us, most likely by Zoom again. But anyway, whichever means it is, at our July meeting.
Perfect.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Alrighty.
All right.
Shall we make a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Any second?
I will second.
Good. I think seeing no opposition, I think I will consider us adjourned.
Rumpf.
Thank you all.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you for setting that up.
We'll be in touch.
We will be
All
in touch.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.